But let's start with the news of the day, and it's not huge news considering the season he had, but it's huge news considering all the other factors. All right, here's the succession of events. Andy Enfield was the head coach at USC. He leaves, takes the SMU job at 9:30 locally, so that's in 28 minutes. They're going to have a press conference. 10:30 local, so that's in an hour and 28 minutes. Eric Musselman, who was the head coach at Arkansas, is going to be named the head coach at USC. And, of course, as is the case with most college basketball players, when there's a coaching change, and oftentimes when there's not a coaching change, the current players who have eligibility to return put themselves in the transfer portal. But what we found out about an hour ago was that Bronny James, in addition to being in the transfer portal, is going to declare for the NBA draft. A cornucopia of people who have broken that. I'll give Shams Charania credit because that's the first one who I saw, but Bronny James is going to declare for the draft. Now, again, there's all these different factors. And by the way, Colin is somewhere probably skiing, thinking to himself, wait, there's a story with USC, with Bronny, LeBron, and the Lakers, and I don't get to talk about it? That's right, Colin, you take a day off, that's what happens. But let's be honest, okay? I said this a year and a half ago. And what happens is you get called a hater when you give anything that's not overwhelming praise, and if you give what I would consider true analysis. Now, look, I'm fortunate to my dad for 30 years was part of the AAU community. My brother's been a college basketball coach for 28 years, I believe. I have my own AAU program. I know all the players, especially in Southern California, who run these events. I get a chance to it's called coaching, but you basically show up and sub guys in and out at some of these all-star events. So I've seen Bronny James play from his freshman year on. And, I mean, I couldn't believe he was a McDonald's All-American last year. And I do know that politics have always played a part in those selections. I'll just be honest to myself. When I came out of high school in 1995, I was not a McDonald's All-American. I was probably on that second line of guys. There was one guy who made it, who it was always underneath my craw that I felt like because of where he signed, he got to be a McDonald's All-American, and I did not. But maybe the reality was, I wasn't even there. I actually got to play in the Magic's Round Ball Classic, which is now, I think that's the Jordan Brand game. It's like the Jordan Brand game. And I can tell you, honestly, I only got to play in that thing. There's some politics there. Chauncey Billups hurt his shoulder, so I was a fill-in. But the reason that I was a fill-in was Sonny Vaccaro ran the game. Sonny and my dad known each other for 40 years. I was probably on the borderline to not really even being the next guy on the call list. But I got the call, I got to play, and I had a great time playing it. So I'm not going to sit here and say that politics haven't been a part of it. And even NBA draft picks, especially in the second round, we have seen Giannis's brothers have been in the NBA. They couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie. But it is fascinating the timing of Bronny James declaring, LeBron James having a player option. Now, I don't think LeBron is switching teams. I think LeBron is all in on the Lakers, and my guess is that when it got a little bit murky in the middle of the season, they probably reaffirmed to him, hey, we don't think he's an NBA player, but, look, can we buy a late second-round draft pick and take Bronny, put him in the G League, and call him up once or twice so you guys can play together? That seems reasonable. The problem with it is everything about LeBron becomes, on some level, a contradiction. Right? Like when there was criticism towards Bronny in terms of, how good was he actually, he took to social media and said, hey, just let him be a kid. All right, let him be a kid. Well, you were the one who said he's better than half the guys in the NBA, that he can help us right now. That was LeBron. Right? He completely contradicted himself. And so if LeBron really wants to let him be a kid and grow, mature, and learn and get better, Send him to play for one of your best friends, Drew Joyce, who just got the Duquesne job. Let him go play for a couple years, get better and better and better. And obviously, selfishly, he wants to play on an NBA floor with his son. That's great, and that can and probably will happen. But has anybody actually asked, is that what's best for Bronny? Does that, forget about giving him the best chance to get to the NBA, but to stay in the NBA, or to, do you want to be that guy who everyone knows you're only there because your dad made it so? Do you want to be the Tommy boy of the NBA? And look, he's not as a mess like Chris Farley's, the late, great Chris Farley's character was in Tommy Boy. But, he couldn't start at USC, who had a very disappointing season in a league in the Pac-12 that wasn't particularly good. And when he did start because of injuries, they didn't win. Right? So if you're a bench player for USC in a year in which USC finishes bottom 3 in the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is not great this year, and now you're going to play in the NBA, we all know. And I just be honest, I think he eventually could be a really good college player. And would actually follow the natural progression of how it used to be for many freshmen. You come in, you first start off the bench. Next year, you start. Okay? And by your third year, all right, now you're on an all-league team. And by your senior year, okay, maybe you're first-team all-league, maybe you're the league player of the year, maybe you got a chance to be an All-American. And then you get done, and then maybe you're a second-round draft pick, and you try and find a way to make it in the league, or you go overseas, and you play until you can't play anymore. And you come back, and you're some league. That's the natural progression line. Now, even to get to that place, it's going to take the right fit, because he's not really a point guard. Okay? And he's also has to change his mentality. He's never really been an alpha. Right? Just hasn't. And some of it is a kind of a lot like Alonzo Ball, where Alonzo Ball, and obviously LeBron's dad is infinitely more accomplished, but similar in this sense. LeVar Ball and takes up all the oxygen in the room. And so Lonzo never really had a dynamic kind of alpha leadership personality, which you can get away with a lot of places. It's hard when you're the point guard. And the same is true for LeBron. LeBron takes up all of the oxygen, all of the attention, and it's in many ways probably great for Bronny because he can just be quiet and thoughtful, and he has his own friends and whatever, but he is not he does not have that leadership, that special something, that special sauce that quarterbacks have, point guards have, leaders have. Now, you can learn and grow and gain that, but you kind of got to go off and do it on your own. But Bronny James declaring for the draft puts the Lakers in that awkward situation. Are we really going to do this? And you kind of have to, right? You kind of have to. You don't want to do the FU to LeBron and go hey, we're not going to draft your son, but we'll sign him as a free agent and see if he makes it in camp. He declares for the NBA, even though everyone knows he is not close to being an NBA-ready player. And we're going to go through this. Now, I will defend it only I can tell you 15 guys they got drafted as favors. That's when you're a player, and when I finished playing in college, when I was agent shopping, one of the things that agents will tell you is look, guys owe us favors, because if you get drafted, again, in my position, one, it would give you a better shot to make the league, because if a team spends a draft pick on you, don't let anybody tell you, I didn't want to be drafted so I could go pick my team. Yeah, okay. If they draft you, you have a much stronger likelihood of making that team because they've invested some. Second-round draft picks now are worth $5 million. Right? They've invested in you. But there's been plenty of investments in guys that are made because, hey, I'm trying to do the agent a favor because I'm negotiating with a real player. Or I'm trying to do the player I have a favor by drafting his guy. Or trying to do trying to do somebody a favor because of some other reason. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at many places in the NBA. But I actually have sympathy and empathy for Bronny. He's like, we're really going to do this? I guess. You know? And I know the Antetokounmpo brothers can't play. Like they look like they're dribbling with their elbows. But we're talking about Bronny James. Like that, it's got to be rough to be Bronny James anyway. Like he didn't ask for the negative or even the positive necessarily attention. Right? He's not an attention. He's not a look at me guy. But his dad is setting himself up for, I guess it's success, because if he does get drafted and his dad does, he said, hey, look, I want to do this. But this is not Ken Griffey Jr. now. Right? It's just not. But that's where we are. And, it does call into question the Lakers and how the Lakers have, at least previously, always been about winning. And it feels like the Lakers, and if they acquiesce to LeBron, get to that same place where they were at the end of the Kobe run. And he has more juice in the tank than Kobe did coming off of the Achilles. Right? Kobe, heck, he told me, like, even his last year was awful because he knew he couldn't be himself. But he had to get through it. And then, of course, he dropped 60 in his last game. It was amazing. But that's where we are, where LeBron James has the power to do this. And he has earned that power. And in many ways, earned that right. Like, look, dude, you played 20 years in the NBA. What he had, 40 the other night? He was incredible. It was last weekend against the Nets. Like, dude's ridiculous. Like, no, I don't think LeBron James is the greatest player ever. I think it's Michael Jordan. And, frankly, I'm not sure that we don't completely underrate Magic and Larry Bird in the discussion of, in their prime, who would you have? But he's on any list of from 1 to 3, 4, 2, 5, whatever. Like, LeBron James, incredible. He's the all-time lead scorer in NBA history. He's ridiculous. So he's earned the right, but, like, do you want to use it to make sure your son gets in the NBA when no one thinks reasonably he's ready or good enough at this point, and not sure he'll be ready or good enough at any point?